everybody. It's uh, it's a pleasure to be here, and I know it would have been a whole day session, and you would have gone through various. As I saw the schedule, it was artificial intelligence, ethics, etc. Uh, the whole regulatory environment is moving in a very different direction, and you see the number of regulations, including the Companies Act, the changes in the Companies Act, the guidelines, various guidelines, FBI guidelines, and every other change that happens. The speed at which the change is happening is very rapid and very fast. And the businesses are not able to cope up with the speed of the changes. And that's where the CFO, being the heartline of the company, has to control, regulate, ensure compliance, and still see that the companies grow as per what they desire to do. So there is always this great pendulum which shifts between means increasing business, number one, doing compliance on the other side, and keeping a balance between the two. And I think the CFOs and the people who are involved in strategy play a very vital role. I have seen lot of aspects that have, and you can see it in the newspapers every day. For example, you saw what happened to even Kotak. They got fined by Reserve Bank. We saw JM, they also had a fine. Bank of Baroda had their one part of the business was told to be 6 months moratorium was given to them. So you see, and Paytm, you saw what happened. So, and even if you look at Byju's or you look at the whole scenario, I think there has been a lot of regulatory pushback for good compliance, good governance, and I think that is the key today to the business. Without good governance, it is not possible to run any business, because the cost of non-governance is the brand erosion. Anything that happens, actually impacts the brand. Now, just because it is in public domain, we can speak freely. Byju's, such a great brand in the Edicom sector, one of the best known companies, well advertised and very progressive, and it got into issues of various sorts, including it being a going concern, etc., shareholders issues. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Because somewhere they were not well aligned to governance, to the key stakeholders, because that's why the stakeholders got very unhappy and did whatever they did. So there are many such examples like this, so which are in public domain, where the governance has played a big role. The CFOs also have a very important role, because let me tell you, I have seen situations where the CFOs are blamed by the promoters if there is a failure. And I can give you one example outside India, which was B.R. Shetty and Company, which you are aware of, where the NHS was the company, where what happened was, when the company went bad, there was a press statement, and there was a press meet, and where they said it was all my employees and my CFOs who are responsible for this. So what happens is, the CFOs can be easy targets. And if you look at the regime in the last 4 or 5 years of regulatory outreach, the first fallout, or the fall guy, or the file person is the CFO. And that is why the CFO's role for governance and for not even tolerating small little non-compliance, that's the key role to the CFOs have to play to ensure that there is good governance, good ethics, their relationship with the board members, their relationship with the stakeholders, complying with stakeholder agreements, and complying with regulatory framework, complying with all sort of regulations. Now, just let us see. Last December, data privacy has come into play, and what is the responsibility here? The responsibility is huge on the company as well as the board of directors, because data privacy, the bill has been enacted, the rules are still getting framed up, and it is going to be very, very challenging in an environment where we have outsourced many things, and where there are online transactions, and where there we have kept data of everybody. So this is going to be the most important aspect as we move forward in governance. This is going to be one big challenge as far as governance is concerned. So though I am doing a keynote address, I would still be open to questions. You can stop me, and I'm happy to take anything, because I don't want it to be a monologue. But what I'm trying to emphasize through my speech is little bit that governance, without governance, there is only going to be failure, failure, failure. And because the penalties, the cost is very, very, very high as far as non-governance is concerned. Now, also you must be very closely observing, especially in the startup space where there are multiple stakeholders, multiple promoters, there are difference of opinion between the promoters also. Why does it happen? Because the fundamentals are not clear. And the fundamentals, for example, the shareholder agreement, are they tight about everything? Have they made a simulation of the situation? They have not. And that is why shareholder agreements are more mechanical than actually being realistic. And that is the challenge which each one faces while they go about. And when the company does well, there is a problem, because the shareholders think, oh, I have done this. And when the company doesn't do well, they say, okay, this is the person who's responsible. So these are the type of roles which are not clearly identifiable. And this is a very integral part of governance, because unless there is a fundamental good shareholder agreement, how can you implement anything? Now comes the other aspect, board level governance. So with LODR, with all the conditions of LODR that have to be followed, and the minority shareholders that have to be followed, and also the proxy advisors' role has become very important, because they keep on voting in the AGM. So you see, there's whole set of external people who run this whole governance, and that is why the pressure on the CFO is huge, because even for example, if there's a voting in the annual general meeting, I won't name a company where one of the promoters was outvoted. And outvoted because there were some conditions that they felt that they should put, and the proxy voters gave an advice to all the institutions that they should be not voted for. So, even in the public domain, we have those type of challenges. And even if it's not a public domain company, the challenges can be very, very different even. For example, GST. There is an arrest for GST non-compliance, and that is what you see. The latest thing is the insurance companies are paying something. They have made a demand of 15,000 crores, and from wherever there is an interpretation issue here, which is yet to be resolved. But 15,000 crores is the demand made, and you see, the CFO is always under threat, in the sense there is a liability of arrest. So this is the type of things. So legal protection for everybody is also very important. In my interpretation, and getting legal opinions and keeping ourselves well equipped is a very integral part of governance. I urge anybody, if you have any question, I'm happy to take, and I can move forward otherwise. You have anything? So shall I move forward? So coming to another aspect of governance. So I did talk of board, I talked of stakeholders, and I am now going to talk about the auditors. So anybody has an idea how many auditors have been punished in the last 1 year? All big firms have got NFRA penalties, and it's all in public domain, so I'm not speaking anything in which is outside the public domain. So why has this happened? Is it only negligence, or is it willful, or is it lack of understanding? It's a mix of everything. The regulator is looking with a very different perspective, and the regulator looks from hindsight. Actually, what happens in a company? It's live. All the decisions are taken live. But after 5 years, certainly one can look back and say this is wrong and this is right. So, for the auditors, it becomes very important to document things. So, for example, I also head a firm. So, we have got into documentation, huge amount of documentation, give this, which puts a lot of pressure onto the company itself. Confirmation from clients, documentation, everything we want documentation, the minutes copy, everything. So what has happened is everybody tries to protect. The auditors are also very careful. They are not casual about it. And the Companies Act also has, migrated into a very strict regime. And so that is, the first big fallout was Satyam. And after that, many such instances happened in India. And after that, even NFRA came into existence, and NFRA has sort of, brought a new perspective to this. And NFRA will also realize the problem of auditors, whereas auditors also must realize that the guidelines are stronger, and also the outreach, the auditor's liability is also huge, and that is why whatever we certify as true and fair must be true and fair in the truest sense. There can be interpretation issues, there can be issues of opinion, but I think that can always be settled through emphasis of matter and qualification. So the third big constituent is the auditor. The fourth, of course, in every sentence I have been talking of the CFO, MD and CEO are also important. The MD and CEO normally run the business, and they want bottom line, top line performances. And I think they drive the business in multiple ways, and I think their job basically is to see that business parameters are met, the budgets are met, the shareholders are happy, the board, whatever they have committed to the board, the budget is always met. And here there is a very fine line. The other risk manager sitting as a risk manager is the CFO, who is always looking at, the governance part of it, whereas the MD and CEO is looking at business growth, capex, to everything. And the CFO on one side is looking at being conservative, the person who's like a risk manager who wants to pull back many things. But between all of them, I think the balance between the two is very important, and that is why sometimes disagreements are very good for everything. And I think healthy disagreement will give better results. So that is why unanimity sometimes is a cause of concern. Sometimes some people who can be risk managers without being very negative is a very, very good trend and a good this thing. And I would like to have a person who can disagree with me on some matters, but let business grow as it is, because the ring fencing of the risk is also equally important. Now, Most companies are having CXOs, CTOs, CROs, apart from HR heads, etc. And these all become part of KMP. I'm sure everybody knows here in this room, but they also are very vital in this whole setup, because CTO in this regime of digitalization, in the of artificial intelligence, and also where we require a lot of data from various points, and where MIS and decision making is fast. So the CTO plays a very important role, especially in this area where there are a lot of frauds, digital frauds that are happening, and we have to protect data. Privacy has become an issue. So how do you address all this? It is addressed through the CTO, who makes a very robust policy, and software issues also along with it. When and especially one is migrating from one platform to another, it becomes very important to sort of have a good CTO. Very, very important to have a CTO. In the financial services market, of course, we have the chief risk officer. Even in the manufacturing companies nowadays, a chief risk officer is there. CRO, who is always deemed to be the most negative person, because he's always flagging of risks. But it's important that we keep such a person who can flag off risks. And of course, we can overrule the person by giving justifications, but sometimes adhering to if it's a genuinely flagged risk, can it be sort of addressed. So I think the whole ecosystem, right from a shareholder to the board, to what the CFO is, to a CTO, to everybody, makes a good governance in the whole sense. Then we have external bodies, the regulators, and of course the auditors play a role. So there is the regulators who are always on the, we are always accountable. Then there are this MCA, and then there is these tax authorities, which also play a very important role in the whole ecosystem of governance. And I think very important that we are tax compliant, because today the law has changed in many ways, and including the shareholders, the ultimate beneficiary can easily be traced, and I think that is the key to the whole thing. So how much of data we have on everybody. So ultimate beneficiary, any shareholder, we can get the ultimate beneficiary, and RBI or anybody else, even SEBI is asking for the ultimate beneficiary, which is very, very significant in the last 3 years. And even if the investment comes from Mauritius or from Singapore, everybody wants to know who's the ultimate beneficiary. And that is what is a very important part of governance, because we have to ensure that these FATCA compliances are done, and then also the ultimate beneficiary we have very clearly outlined. Then another aspect of the governance is how is our credit rating. Means credit rating is a challenge, means because there is always this difference of opinion whether I should get better rating. What are the parameters that will help me in get a better rating? Most of the companies have to look inward to understand what credit rating they can get, because sometimes lack of knowing how to get a good credit rating can cost them one notch down. Rating can be one notch down. So because you will not get investments if there is no good credit rating. So it's a thing that if you get a good credit rating, you will be able to take bank credit, and you'll be accepted in the market. So I think these are all the external factors: the credit rating agencies, the regulator, and of course all other like tax authorities become the external regulators, including RBI in case of listed companies, SEBI. In case of insurance companies, it becomes IRDA. And there are 104 regulators, by the way. India, if you look at all the regulators in all the sectors, there are 104 regulators. And I think each one of you will be countering different regulators in different form. And that is, I think, the whole environment. We'll have to do business within that. And it's good for us, because if we work business through this regulatory environment, we will have a long, safer passage. and business over years, a successful business over years, we are feeling the pinch because the transformation is happening. And any transformation has its own challenges. Like you all witnessed, GST had its challenges and still has interpretation issues. But but it has given a lot of depth, the collections have increased, and many issues have been resolved with GST. I think, every regulatory environment that is pushed, that is, you never had RERA before us. RERA has, to the builders, has become a big thing for the people who are uh, you know investing in flats, apartments, houses, etc. So, but it has regulated the builders. So all these regulations that have come in the last 15, 12, 15 years are all, sort of maturing, and this also requires a mature handling as far as governance is concerned. And I personally feel that we are moving towards a very sort of a very governed, very accountable, very we have to be very prepared and well prepared with knowledge, and that is the way we have to move forward as far as governance is concerned. Um, can I have somebody speak, or should I still continue? Yeah, please. Thank you so much. So, Anurag, I have deviated from a keynote speaker to a bit of change, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon, all of you. Good afternoon, Raviji. Can I ask one question just? I think there is a blanket firing of notices has been, whether it is you're just concerned, you talked about GST or to direct taxes. So regarding section 16.4, the ITC and other things. So without the basic fundamentals, I've seen many notices has been coming, and as far as the CFO forum is concerned, I think we need to have a more unity regarding the facing these challenges, which is actually not, government is not going behind the logic behind the notices and other things, whether it is income tax 148, whether it is GST 16.4 section or other things. Can you have some comments on the unity is most important rather than facing these challenges, because I personally addresses more than 100 appeals in this.
So, I'll answer to you in a very straightforward way, and I'm not going to be diplomatic. GST notices are coming because there are interpretation issues still. I can tell you that there are many interpretation issues still. Whether a very simple thing, I do a yoga class, or I teach separately, or I do it in a class. There can be an interpretation. See, this is a business, and this is something for health. So, there are many, like insurance also. Suppose my marketing expenses, why should I pay GST? That's a big interpretation issue that is sitting at this point. So what is happening is the GST has been enacted very strongly, but it had to be enacted because somebody required to push it so that the implementation can happen. So what is happening in the endeavor to get more revenue, notices do come. But what happens is the CFOs have to also push back and tell them, see, these notices are, so we should also be very brave enough to understand the technicalities and push back. So there is an overreach here, certainly, because first of all, they have not, there are interpretation issues. And, even if you look at a small PC of yours, there is a software, there is a hardware. Even if you look at EPC contracts, there are GST of 28% to 18% to 5% in an EPC contract. You can see that. So there is a very fine line that happens between all of them, and that's why the notices keep cropping up. And also, they are also risk averse of non-collection. So, or there is also zeal for over-collection. And it is important you have forums where you call these people, invite the top officers of GST, have a session with them, and that is why even the department has started an awareness sort of a thing where they train the officers of the problems of the client. I think we are maturing. Here, I would say that this will all settle down. Now, coming to income tax also has shifted from what one could, an SSC could go and explain, it's faceless. It's all on mail now. Now, that is also, there is no human element that is there to explain anything. And it's a tick in the box type of an approach that happens. Plus also AI. I suddenly somebody rang me up. My tax has gone up. My returns have this. What during COVID they must have traded a bit, and suddenly they saw there was this income that has generated. So the person who was not doing trading was during COVID in lockdown was doing all this, and the AI captured it, and that was there in the tentative income tax statement. So what happens is the artificial intelligence also is throwing up many things. The center also has trigger points. Suppose your credit card, your expenses are more than 5 lakhs, the trigger will come in. So the artificial intelligence also, and then what is the discretion of the person who is assessing you? He'll go by that artificial intelligence, notice will come, you will explain, it will get settled. So we are moving, and in this type it will happen. But engagement and also unity is fine, unity is very good, but also knowledge is very important. And I think it's important to have a communication between the SSC and the department. And that is what I think we should encourage that. And you should all at various forums speak of them, call them also. So Anurag, have you called anybody from GST here? You should call. You should make them interact with CFOs, because they will know the problem of the other side. I think the forums have to come in and do all that. I hope.
Thank you.
So I was given 20-25 minutes, Anurag. So want me to, I do not know what is your schedule. You want me to still go on? Huh? You're running late? Yeah. So my final take is that governance is going to be the key for any company to succeed in the future, because the regulatory outreach is there. Regulatory changes are fast and furious, and we need to actually be prepared for it. And that is the only way to go forward, with good business ethics, with good artificial intelligence, with proper data privacy, and with the right type of people, which is the most important thing, having the right type of shareholders also. People who raise money, take any type of shareholder, and then they really repent after that. So what I'm trying to say, the governance ecosystem has to, is in a very uniquely placed at this point of time. Thank you so much for having heard me, and thank you, BW, for calling me. It's a pleasure to have been here. Thank you so much.